Hello everybody, I'm TJ and I'm joined by Lnguagehackr after his finals appearance in week 1 of season 2 for Hearthstone Grandmasters. Lnguagehackr, how you doing today, man?
Pretty good. Nice to have a day off to relax now after the first tournament's over. How are you?
I'm good. I don't necessarily get the day off to relax, but I'm taking Tuesday and Wednesday off, so excited about that. We just wrapped up matches for week 1. It was the Conquest version of the Swiss portion of the event. How did things feel for you? A week after a new expansion was released, you make it to the finals. How was week 1 for you?
Generally, it's a little rocky when we have a tournament right after an expansion. Sometimes after balance changes as well, but generally at the start of an expansion, we have so many new cards to work with. The meta changing a lot really affects what people end up bringing. And in metas like this, or in situations like this, I like to bring decks that I feel are good against either something very specific in the meta that I expect everyone to bring, Druid, or I try to bring decks that are just good against everything. And this time I decided to bring something that are decks that are good against Druid that also happen to have a decent spread against the other stuff I was expecting.
Yeah, you had a couple picks that were very unique as far as decks go. You brought, Lnguagehackr Pre-Survival Druid, which, kind of expected. But you had Big Warrior in Lnguagehackr Warlock.
Mm-hmm.
Did you mentioned how you kind of trying to expect what people were bringing. Did you do a lot of testing versus Druid, and those two were the ones that came out with like the best win rate? What was that process?
Yes, so I tried to go through a bunch of different archetypes, see what sticks, like throw stuff against the wall and see what sticks. I generally play a few games with popular archetypes, and then from there I start to go down to wackier things like, for example, Big Warrior, or older decks that may not have necessarily changed much with new cards, and you'll see Lnguagehackr Warlock as an example of that. I found Big Warrior, just from testing on ladder, was actually pretty decent in terms of its matchup spread, and you'll see that the cards I included ended up changing quite a bit for my ladder deck. I ended up including ramming speeds, courses, blade storms, a lot of control heavy tools that can kind of deal with Druid's big minions. The thing that Druid does is pretty linear, and at least right now in the meta, make some big things, try to kill you with it. There's obviously some variations with exotic mount sellers being thrown in, some people running Malygos Druid, but I thought it would be pretty cookie cutter, survival of the fittest, double guard animals Druid for the most part. And Lnguagehackr Warlock and Big Warrior have tools to deal with that pretty well, like some of the tools I mentioned earlier, including Brawl for the Warrior. And for the Warlock, there's not so much single target removal, but there's still very flexible Plague of Flames along with the Invokes to get rid of big minions, doesn't matter how big they are. Nether does the same job. Dark Skies can deal with Stealth Twilight Runners, basically making sure I have decks that have the toolkits required to deal with Druid.
Well, you ultimately fell to Muzzy in the finals.
Indeed.
And Muzzy did have the Druid deck that you were trying to target. What do you think kind of went wrong in the finals? Because honestly, because of watching you perform leading up to that point, I pegged you as the favorite.
It was actually kind of funny. So the finals against Muzzy was our third set that tournament. We played twice in Swiss, and we were at a 1-1 score. So that was kind of the final game to take all the marbles, which was kind of cute. I still think I was favored on paper, just by a little bit though. His lineup is a little bit different than what I expected. I didn't expect to see too many rogues. And while I don't think his rogue was perfectly positioned against my lineup, I think it did end up sneaking through. Generally, I don't tailor my decks to play around randomly generated Pyroblast, which is a little unfortunate. And I believe that's how 2 of those games ended up finishing. But I mean, that happens. Even when you build a lineup around targeting something like Druid, which you did have, it's not 100%. Yeah. It can get through, and that's why it's important to not have only polarizing decks if you're trying to target something, unless you're certain that it's 90% plus win rate. Otherwise, it's better to have decks that still have a decent spread while being a little favored against what you're trying to target.
Yeah, that rogue deck. I mean, it feels like the rogue deck is designed to kill you with randomly generated things. It's like a randomly generated rogue. It's that rogue deck was pretty nuts.
Yeah, it's
very
it's
hit
cool.
Very hit or miss though.
Yeah, we saw it, I think, flop in a few other sets, but generally it impressed me quite a bit, and I'll be looking forward to trying that on ladder as well.
Yeah, and this week we have Last Hero Standing coming up as the format for Grandmasters. How are you feeling about that? Did you play much Last Hero Standing and, the big opens like DreamHack that actually played the format?
Yeah, Last Hero Standing was actually one of the first formats I started playing, like you said, being one of the flagship formats for DreamHacks, which I started attending a few years ago. I have some experience with it. It plays a lot differently than Conquest, obviously. With the change in format will lead to changes in lineups and even decks, even archetypes maybe that we'll be seeing. So I've started a little bit of prep on that, but I haven't really figured out which way I want to go with it. You can't really target a deck like you can in Conquest, because once you beat a deck, it's gone, and then you have to deal with the other decks. So you have to find a spread of decks that can counter a bunch of different archetypes you might expect people to bring, or just another thing you can do is just bring 4 good decks, which we see people do a lot. Just bring stuff that's good against all of the stuff.
Are there any, not to give away any of your prep, I don't even know if you've started prep since we kind of just wrapped up things, but we also have Balance Patch on the horizon. Are there any sleeper decks? Are there any, to use a metaphor here, big warriors of the coming week?
So far, it doesn't seem like there are, but we just wrapped up the tournament yesterday, so there's still plenty of time. Well, not really. There's a couple days. We'll see.
There's the 2 days.
2 days. Okay.
3 days.
Maybe no sleeper decks till then, but I'll keep an ear to the ground, see what other people are trying. I generally bounce back and watch other streams to see what people are trying. I know a lot of the other Grandmasters still stream a lot of the time during the day, even during prep, so it's easy to see if Boar happens to pick up a cute little deck I might want to steal for myself.
There you go. And kind of final question or final talking point, I guess. What's your relationship with RDU?
Just some guy on Twitter.
All right. That's all I wanted to know. That's all I needed to know. All right, man. Well, thanks. I appreciate you for taking the time and having this interview with me, and good luck in your matches.
Thanks, TJ. Good luck in your casting.
Oh, thank you very much. And for everybody out there tuning in, you can check out all information about Grandmasters and upcoming Masters tours at playhearthstone.com/esports.